We are live. Welcome to our meeting out loud. Kornelia here, Trish Campbell, Diane McClay. We are from the Kornelia Stephanie Media Group. And who is the Kornelia Stephanie Media Group? If you don't know, then you're about to find out, because the Kornelia Stephanie Media Group is the new Hay House. And basically, it is featuring the world's best influencers, the world's greatest speakers, the world's best of the best on the leading edge of our evolution here today. And so today I'm meeting with Diane and Trish, and we're doing our meeting out loud. We've done this before. And we had this meeting scheduled. And then yesterday I had an event that happened in my life, not to me personally, but to a close friend of mine. And so we thought we were going to cancel the meeting. And then we decided that no, this is vulnerable. This is what we're all dealing with in life. Mm-hmm. And this is what we all go through. And so why would we wait until we're all perfectly put back together again before we have a meeting, right?
Right.
You know, so that's what it is. So what do you ladies have to say about that?
Well, I mean, that's like you said, that's who we are. That's like we're here modeling our authentic way of being in collaboration with each other. And sometimes these things happen. And I think it's important to share what we're going through, the reality that we're going through, because like we've done enough of hiding that, like you said, having to show up perfect, or when we're put together. Well, first of all, we're never going to get there because like we can't possibly be perfect. So there's always going to be something. And it's like just learning to go with the flow and to honor what's coming up and to share that, because I think in sharing our stories and what we're going through, we help others heal, we help ourselves heal, and we inspire other people as well. So that's how I feel about it.
Good. Thank you for that.
You know, I'm going to chime in and say that in our last podcast, on the Shift podcast, Trish and I talked about a topic that might be uncomfortable for some people, and that was how we celebrate freedom and what independence means to us. And we took a different stance where we created a land acknowledgement for the people who came before us. And the reason why I reference that is because today's topic, what is heavy on your hearts and what we are here to support you with, is also a topic that could, for some people, be uncomfortable. It could be awkward. It could be not politically correct to bring it into the limelight. And the Kornelia Stephanie Media Group is very much about speaking their truth and creating a new earth where communication is open and honest and forthcoming, even if it's difficult or awkward. And
even if we're not, I'm going to just chime in. Sorry to cut you off, Diane, because I'm hot. It's like, bam. Even if we're not on the political same page, even if we're not standing on the same political views, even if we're not, even if our belief systems are not. Where did she go?
Oh, she dropped off.
Is it because I intercepted?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I want to say too, I want to say that what we might talk about might be also a word that came up as triggering for people. So just like as a content warning for people, like we are going to talk about something difficult, and there she is.
Are you mad at me, Diane?
No, not at all. I think I had a glitch that I got kicked out for some reason.
So even if we're not on the same page,
right,
with our belief systems, that's where we're coming together to build bridges,
right,
to be inclusive, and to be, even if we're not on the same page with our belief systems, but that we're willing to sit and be curious to find out what your belief system is, and be curious about, hey, how can I listen to understand your perspective, and be curious about it without being angry or closing the door, talk to the hand, and not want to listen to what you say. Because honestly, what I'm going to talk about today is triggering, like you said, Trish, and it is triggering and it is really uncomfortable. I think one of the worst things for a mother or parents to have to ever go through, and that is to lose the child that they gave birth to, and to, live their life goes on, but the child is gone now. And especially when the potential for the human being never got really experienced yet and lived out. We've seen it. And the worst thing is when your child commits suicide. I mean, that's what happened yesterday. 2 days ago, my friend, a very close friend of mine that's in my inner circle, her youngest son committed suicide on Sunday night. And Monday morning, now they were with the family all night and then had to fly to the body was flown to Harborview Hospital by helicopter. He was still alive inside the helicopter. And then they thought that, he was going to be okay, but he wasn't. And so the family, we're talking Harborview in Seattle, and the family is like out here where I am. It's like an hour away from Harborview, maybe a little bit more. So that's basically what happened. And my friend has a tight knit family, core values. I know what her core value is because I've been seeing her and her husband make choices on those core values time and time and time again as they are raising their family and always making choices for the family and building a tight-knit family. Family comes first, family first, family first. So that's who they are, right? So here my friend contacts me on Monday morning, which was yesterday, and told me that her son committed suicide. It just didn't even feel, it didn't even feel like that I was even hearing this correctly. Mm-hmm. And me personally, for people that know me, because I've been very vocal about my own pain that I have transcended with suicide. I've walked intimately with the shadow of suicide half of my life. And so I know this pain of what that is like. I know that pain, and I know the suicidal shame and the thoughts that you think that you don't fit into the world and that you're not lovable and that you're empathic and that you just feel so much and that you just don't know how to fit in and that you don't know how to deal with the world and your life and all the things that you're feeling as a human being. And so I know this pain intimately. So I know that, this is something that can be transcended and transformed, because from today's place of consciousness where I live today, I could never, ever imagine that I would ever, ever have those thoughts again. So I just want to throw that out there by saying this can be overcome. The other thing I want to say about this whole suicide thing, that I really don't think that Brian wanted to commit suicide, that I don't think that he wanted to take his own life. I think that he was under the influence of alcohol, and that the influence of alcohol, when you've been drinking all day in the hot sun and you're out and you're drinking and then something negative happens and you get pissed off. And that's what took place. So I really don't think it was suicide per se that Brian thought, because he was one of those kind of people that when you knew him, you absolutely loved being around him. And, he had so much life to live. He loved his fiance. He was getting ready to get married to in the fall. They were getting ready to all go on vacation this week, which is on Wednesday or Thursday, they were all going camping. He couldn't wait. He was talking to his best friend this past weekend. I saw this yesterday because I was with the family, and I saw the picture of the barbecuer, a nice barbecue grill that he just purchased for the family. So all these things that were being shared, there was nobody thinking that, oh yeah, he's going to commit suicide. He just showed the barbecue. He's so excited about vacation. He's looking forward to getting married. So what is it? This is the thing. So this is where I'm looking at it going, wait a minute, because as a suicidal soul that I've overcome that for myself, I know that even when I had the thoughts, I was always walking in that shadow. But when we're under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and I'm not saying he was under the influence of any kind of drugs because he was not a drug person, but he was under the influence of alcohol. And so that's why now I'm actually wondering if in our new villages, in the new earth, we as a human race, do we even want alcohol over here? Because honestly, what do we need it for? In the old world, I know I'm throwing a lot of things out there, but these were all the things that were going through my mind this morning when I was on my morning walk. This was all my processing with nature as I'm sitting there in the forest with the trees, talking about all of this stuff out loud to myself and informing the field and reporting back to source. Why do we even need the alcohol? It was developed by human beings. And why is it that we even need it? Even though I'm the person that likes to drink a beer and like to drink a glass of wine, I was having some wine tasting on Sunday afternoon. But honestly, if we don't have a limit, and if we don't know how to keep our children safe, because now little Wyatt, that's 3 years old, Brian's son, is growing up without a dad. And,
yeah. Can I jump in here? I think everything you're saying is important, and I think one of the things that we talk about in the Kornelia Stephanie Media Group and that Trish and I have talked about on our Shift podcast is when you think that you have a piece of the story, taking the time to get more information, ask questions, be curious. But I want to call out something important for anybody who's listening right now, who may be in that dark place, who may be walking in that shadow. I did post in the chat the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. There are people that are trained and out there who can pick up the phone in a heartbeat and can be with you so that you're not in as much of a shadow by yourself. That number is 1-800-273-8255 or 1-800-273-TALK. So let's just make sure that gets put out to our listening audience as a possibility, in addition to us as a new community in the new earth, making sure that we do our part to lift people up in light, to lift people up in spirit, and to be attentive to what's going on around us. Not everything can get predicted or prevented, but a lot can. And so I just it's important to me that we actually put that resource out for people if they need it.
Yeah. And one other thing, thank you for putting that out there. We put a GoFundMe campaign together for the funeral expenses, the unexpected funeral expenses. I will put the link also underneath this video so that you can donate if you resonate with this cause. And if you, any donation, all of the funding goes to Janet's family so that they can help with the funeral expenses and everything that needs to be taken care of. That was completely unexpected. So we put that together. And in the GoFundMe, you will see underneath there, we listed the suicide numbers as well that Diane just mentioned. And I think this is an important piece because a lot of people walk with the shadow, especially over this past year, last 18 months. The suicide rate, I don't have the stats, but they're huge. They're through the roof. It's ridiculous. That is a pandemic itself. Right. That is a pandemic itself. So, and we need to really look at what is the reason for what's causing this pandemic in our young people.
Mhm.
Brian was like 33 years old. The most he would give you the shirt off his back. That's the reputation. Now, when you have somebody like that, you want them to be part of this plan. You want them to be part of this earth, right? And so he did, like I said, he didn't mean to commit suicide. This is not what he meant to do. This was an accident. He got drunk. He had too much alcohol in the system. He got pissed off, and that's what it was.
Mhm.
And I think that if he would have been in his right mind and not be influenced by drugs or alcohol, then that wouldn't have happened. So so that's why it's like now we really need to look at it from this conscious perspective, what we're bringing over the Rainbow Bridge into our new earth. What are we allowing into our homes? We were talking about this yesterday, where there's a halfway house. And one of the reasons why this particular halfway house is so successful is because they don't allow any alcohol in there. Like the people that come to this halfway house, they have a very no tolerance policy, and that's no alcohol is allowed, and everyone is successful.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is that, right? So everybody thrives because they're not under the influence, because human beings, they just don't have a limit.
Right.
They don't have that limit. Yeah, you want to say something?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry that this has happened. And, you're very courageous in sharing this story and talking about this as it's so raw and real right now. And again, speaking to that space that we're creating here that allows that. Speaking to, I think, what ends up happening is with alcohol is like things get distorted, things get exaggerated in our minds, in our realities, and like I can totally feel that as you're speaking it, that he didn't intend to do this, but
Did not.
And it's interesting because, I mean, like you said, this past year has been like we've been moving through such heavy energy and not knowing what to do, and it's a new space for everybody. And so the fact that we're even talking about this, like this is what we need to be doing. This is what we need to be sharing these stories and making it quote unquote normal for us to have these conversations, for people to when they are having thoughts like this sounds like it wasn't something he set out to do, but there's so many different, angles or realities where this happens, where people, are living that day to day. You spoke to that. So I think it's, it's good for us to have this conversation and to just share stories around this topic and make it more commonplace to talk about, so people know that they don't have to be afraid if they're going through something, if they are going through something and having these thoughts, that they can reach out to somebody. And I also want to point out, as you're talking about this and as we're doing this meeting out loud, there's not one of us that's probably not touched by, I'm probably going to get emotional, by suicide. I have my own story of somebody who, when I was growing up, took his own life. Today is his birthday.
Oh.
So it's ironic, not ironic, synchronistic that we're having this conversation on this day. Again, a situation where I don't think he set out to do that. Something happened that triggered him. He knew, I think he knew what to do it, but it wasn't like, is that what he ultimately wanted? I don't know for sure. I will never know. And there was never any real closure on that. So I think that we all have some sort of connection to this topic in our lives, and talking about this like in a real and raw way is going to help people. And that's, I'm glad that we decided to go ahead and have our session today and meet out loud in rawness in this space. So,
Diane?
I'm just thinking that I think it's important to really try to also not to deviate away from the topic of suicide, but I think suicide happens when people feel like they don't have any other options. And in the Cornelia Stephanie Media Group, in the New Earth, in my business in particular. I know it's important with Trish and with Cornelia. I think we talk a lot with our clients and in our programming about creating awareness, moving into a new space, looking for options or trying to create options. And that's all well and good when someone feels like they have options. But I think that suicide happens a lot when somebody feels like they're backed into a corner, they have no other out. And Cornelia, maybe you can speak to it.
I will.
I cannot claim that I have that awareness or that knowledge base, but I believe in choice very, very strongly. And when someone feels like they don't have a choice, either it was taken from them by someone else or by our society or by our culture, or it was taken away because they don't feel supported, that's when we create those shadows. And I think it's important to try to put light into the shadows by, whenever possible, looking for ways that we can create a choice before it gets to the point where the only thing left is to remove ourselves from the equation. And I don't know how you feel about that, but I guess I feel like there's more choice out there than what we're led to believe and what we know to be true for ourselves. And everybody that's in the Kornelia Stephanie Media Group, their coaching programs and their businesses are all geared to help people bring in different ways of creating choice, whether it's eating or health or exercise or products we use or perspective that we have. So I guess that's what I feel like I can offer right now is when these incidents happen, I think it's important to look at if there was something that could have been done. It's not at the last minute where the choice or the change comes in. It's leading up to those events. And again, Brian may be different because this was not a planned event for him. But I guess that's what I've got. I'm not quite sure where I'm going with that, but I think it's important to really make sure that we edge the darkness back by stepping into our own power, stepping into what's right personally for us, and engaging ways to create awareness, options, and choice in our life.
Yeah.
When we are in the middle of the emotional energy of wanting out, when you're in that space, the only thing that you want to do is kill the pain. That's the reason for drinking the alcohol, suppressing and numbing up so you don't have to feel it. That's the reason for taking the drugs. That's the reason for going on shopping sprees or gambling sprees or whatever porn addictions. That's the reason, is to numb up and not feel the feelings, because the feelings that we're having to feel in the evolution of our humanity, of taking full responsibility for our lives and what we're creating and where we've given our power away, or the places we feel powerless, that we just feel like we don't fit in and we can't get out of it. I guess when you were talking, Diane, I guess like what would have happened for me back in the day when I was trying to take my life consciously, where I was like, that's it. And I tried many times before, but I always had so many interventions. The angels were working overtime on my behalf to make sure that I stay here on this planet, which is now the reason why, like, even when I spoke with Janet, Brian's mom, this morning, she was telling me, she goes, there's so many things that I'm realizing now about relationship and connections, that how important it is to not let those connections fall to the wayside. And, people are coming out of the woodworks and sharing their love and compassion and understanding. So, and this is why do we wait until something traumatic like that happens before we tell each other that we love each other, or before we show each other that we matter? Or if an intervention does need to take place because there's alcohol going on or things that need to go on, don't hold back from speaking out to calling it out. You've got a problem. You need some help. But no, we don't say things because we don't want to make people uncomfortable.
Right.
The irony, the really sad irony is, if I choose not to make somebody uncomfortable in the moment because there's an awkward topic or a concern, imagine the uncomfort that this family has to live with for the rest of their life because nobody said anything.
Right.
Right. I mean, so where is it right that I trade my slight discomfort at the awkwardness of conflict? But it's okay for me to allow perpetual, perhaps unrecoverable discomfort in the end of the conversation because I failed to act or I failed to become involved or concerned or aware.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem right in the new earth. That energy doesn't sit right in my chest.
Mm-hmm.
What were you going to say, Trish?
I was just going to say that in conjunction with all of this, like, I just feel like society in general, like the way we've been conditioned, we've become afraid of our own humanity. And like, we've been conditioned that if there's something that is feeling off with us, there's something wrong with us, and that's bad. And it's that it's not okay to be imperfect, that we're constantly striving to be perfect. And if we don't fit in, then there's something wrong with us. And then we feel like we can't share that with anybody because there's so much judgment. And the judgment is really ultimately judgment of ourselves when we're judging somebody else. But it's just this ongoing cycle of trying to fit into something that is unachievable. And then we, like Diane said, we don't even want to risk any discomfort for working our way through it. And so to your point, we mask it, we cover it up, we numb it. And instead of, if we just understood that if we feel our way through it, that there is something on the other side that's better, and that we're more whole human beings when we go through that process, even if it is difficult.
Did you guys know, the two of you, aside from the audience right now, but let me just ask you guys this. Did you guys know that I used to be a drug addict?
No.
You've alluded to kind of living in the dark and having shadows and fighting some demons, but you, in the time I've known you, you've never been blatant about that. I could infer, but it's not my place to assume or infer, and it's not my place to ask until something like that is where you want to share it.
Well, I've been talking about it for years, openly, vocally, so that's why I thought maybe the two of you knew. But to overcome these kinds of addictions of crack cocaine, which I was an addict for 4 years. I was on methamphetamine drugs for over 10 years in the closet. Nobody knew. So I have been, to overcome those kinds of drugs and be sitting in this chair today, showing my magnificence and who I am and what I'm up to and how one can transform. That's why I can tell you that if you're sitting out there thinking that you want to harm yourself or that you want to commit suicide, that I guess the question that you could ask is, can suicide be overcome? And I could tell you, yes, it can. Yes, it can. And yes, you can. And yes, you can. And there is so much that you can do because you don't want to harm yourself. You don't want to cause violence. You don't want to cause violence to yourself. You want to kill the pain. And the only way to kill the pain is to feel it. And the way that we do that is we do that with the support of the people that are there for you, because I know God's got his angels in your space right now. And there's people that are talking to you. There's people that are available. You are not alone. And so that's why it's like, why is it that, like, for instance, we get to co-create the new world on how we want it to be. We get to grow our food. We get to design our lifestyle. We get to call our freedoms and be free in what it is that we want to do. But if our young children, of our young men, our future leaders of this world, don't know how to place limitations on when the drinking limit is enough, 2 beers and that's it, or 2 wine spritzers with some vodka in it, that's it. If they can't do that, how do we stop that kind of thing from happening? Because again, what happened here on Sunday this was not a suicidal thing that this man wanted to harm himself. He loved his son. He loved his family so much. He loved his life. He had some anger issues. And, who knows what he was numbing up, right? We don't know because we've never gotten to the bottom of it. So, that's why I'm like, as a vocal source, as an ambassador for the new earth, and talking about my contribution as we're building our villages, as we're building our communities. Maybe, we have, limitations on the alcohol that, I don't know how to put a cap on it, but I know that there's many people that drink and do drugs and then hurt themselves. Mm-hmm. When I was committing suicide, I was not under the influence. I was deeply, deeply, deeply in my pain. I was in so much pain. And here's the thing. I didn't know this at the time, but as an empathic soul, feeling other people's emotions, mm-hmm. like, I'm sure you can relate to this because you're an empathic soul also, you just might not know it yet. Mm-hmm. But that when you walk into a room, you can feel other people's energy. Yep. And you can feel either, they're this energy, or you can feel this, or you can sense this, or you can sense that. Well, as we are super sensitive, psychic, intuitive people, we can feel the collective energy. We can feel the energies around us. And so this was one of my gifts, is as a super sensitive energy being, I'm feeling the energy of the people around me as an empathic soul. And suddenly now I want to kill myself. So why do I want to kill myself? Is this really mine, or is it the collective? I had to think about all these things later on. But when you're in the throes of it, when you're deep, deep, deep in the emotional pain, whose pain are you feeling? Yours or everybody else's? So there's so much to it. That's why we're doing the work that we're doing. That's why we're having these conversations today. Mm-hmm. But, it's like I today can have a limit on having a couple beers or having a couple glasses of wine. And AA would never recommend that. That I, as a former person that was an addict, can do that. But I know my strength. I know my limitations. I know what my boundaries are. And I know where my values are. Mm-hmm. But not everybody has that sense of deep, deep, deep inner work that they've done. But I can tell you that you can. Because I know one thing. If a person like me, who was honestly in the face with the devil,
you said you weren't under the influence. What I think you meant is you weren't under the influence of drugs or alcohol.
Yep, that's what I meant.
But I think I'm hearing that you were under the influence of pain. When I was a park ranger, we talked about the mentality of people who come into the park. And we always used to joke that everybody who drives in is under the influence. They're under the influence of something. The long drive, the hot weather, the kids crying in the car, their expectations for a perfect trip, the expectations for a perfect campground, the expectations that literally the word recreation is broken down to recreate. People leave their jobs, they leave their homes, they leave their cities and their communities to go someplace else to recreate themselves for a moment in time, for the weekend. And we had to receive those people as they were, as they showed up. in all of their glory and crankiness and irritability and frustration. And it was our job as stewards to facilitate an experience that allowed them to let go of those influences, recreate themselves in a new environment, which included nature, and to put them back into the world perhaps a little bit more whole than the way they showed up. And I think that's as I'm speaking that out loud, that feels good to me, and it feels like a really good metaphor. It's not just people coming to a campground or a park to recreate themselves. People try to recreate themselves through drugs or alcohol and may or may not get where they want to be. But I think it's our job as stewards of the new earth, as stewards of humanity, to accept people where they're at with all their glory and all of their issues. If I don't even like the word issues, but whatever makes them them. And for us to do our job as human beings to help them recreate themselves, even if it's just for a point in time. For me, that means maybe I'm going to walk past somebody and I'm going to smile at them. Maybe I'm going to make a donation to a charity to help an organization help other people. But I think tragedies like this are wake-up calls for us to step up, be present, take inventory of how we're showing up in the world for ourselves and other people, and to do better, to be a better version of ourselves and to help other people be better versions of themselves.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's so much, there's so much to all of this, and I know that, we mentioned the word pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to point out something to you, something else I thought about this morning that was huge, is that my friend has a big family. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
family is very important to them. They've modeled that over the years, how important family is. And so I know that. So Brian has 2 sisters and a brother, mom and dad, right? Janet and her husband. And they have a lot of nieces and nephews. All the kids are married and they all have partners and they're all there. So we were yesterday at their house, at the sister's house, who received everyone, to bring everyone there, to bring everyone into one home.
Mm-hmm.
And all the people were feeling the shock. There was all the grandkids, everybody was there, all the things. But it was so interesting, when we're talking about pandemic, because this was yesterday. So the night before, they lost their brother, their son, their father. They lost Brian, right? And yesterday in this house, so many people came through. And everybody wanted to hug. Everybody wanted to hug each other, cry, be with each other. Nobody was sitting there thinking about the pandemic. Nobody was sitting there thinking about, are you vaccinated? Are you not vaccinated? Can I give you a hug? Do you? Yeah. Nobody was thinking about any of these things. There was just a house full of people that were all together, and everybody was crying and hugging and sharing food and being with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about that. I thought, wow, because the true pandemic, what was happening yesterday, was a pandemic that so many people deal with, and that is the suicidal thoughts or emotions and the pain that they feel like they can't live their lives without being triggered on some sort of event that's going to have them, cause harm to themselves or kill somebody else. These are vocal things that I'm speaking, but this is reality.
Mm-hmm.
This is, you don't know if it's a person that's going to harm themselves or somebody that's going to go to an open system and pull out a gun and start shooting people. What causes people to do that, right?
Yeah.
So this is what we need to address and talk about. These aren't just mental health issues, which our system and our society has made it to be, that it's a mental health thing, that there must be something wrong with the person. As an emotional expert, because if you're saying, a person like myself that has overcome these things, I have found that it is the emotion that we act upon, not the mental thought. The thought is the direction. That you think the thought, I'm going to blow my head up, I'm going to do this, and then the emotion is what brings that in, and then you take action on that.
Yeah.
So it's the emotional, when we know how to deal with our emotional feelings, with our wholeness, when we deal with those, that's where it begins. Because we all have thoughts that aren't true. We all have fears. We all think thoughts. This could happen, that could happen. But unless we put emotion behind it, these are just thoughts flying by in the cloud of thoughts that is out there. So you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that as you speak of emotion, I think it's really a symptom of the society that we live in, that we've been taught to suppress our emotions and not feel them and not show them and not express them. And so we don't even know what's going on with ourselves in our bodies. And it's all connected. There's so much emphasis put on our physical health, but it is connected to our mental health, and our emotions are that bridge between our physical and our mental health, I think. And the fact that I feel like we're so behind in expressing ourselves through our emotions. Like, we're behind. We need to catch up. And I feel like that's why this is happening. And it's so interesting that you speak to the word pandemic, and this is the silent pandemic that nobody's talking about. And there's lots of people that probably have these thoughts that don't ever act on them, but it's because we're convinced that if we have a bad thought about ourselves, or if we have something that goes wrong in our life, that there's something wrong with us, and then we're a failure, and then the thoughts, it spirals from there, and then it just escalates and amplifies. So it's like, if we can come back to having it be like a fundamental of our being to move through our emotions, and to, like, that's
something to be taught in the school systems.
Exactly. Did you ever learn about emotions in school? I know I didn't. I mean,
right? Or learn about,
I'll give you something to cry about, or
or self-love and empowerment.
Or any of that. How to tune into what we're feeling. There's no teachings of that, and unless we learn it in our families, and so, or on our own, through our own willingness to explore into ourselves and our soul and why we're here, and all of the things that we're talking about, instead of running away from it because we think it's bad. Run to it, go inward, like go into it and understand it, and then you're in a better place to move and to be in your wholeness. I mean,
can you imagine if they taught, this is one of my big dreams for the future, is that our new school systems, that they teach wholeness, emotional honesty with the kids, to bring their conscious awareness to the feelings of, how are you feeling today? Because don't think that those children that are coming from your household, that they're not empathic to what you, the parent, is going through, and picking up that you and dad had a fight last night or something like that, and now they're having to go to school and worry or feel about what is going to happen. Are you guys going to get a divorce? Is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? All those things go through children because they're so smart. They're so incredibly sensitive. They are so in tune, much more so than we are. Right. And if we right away give them the empowerment to speak to how they feel and what they're feeling, what we're now teaching each other, to articulate your feelings. I see it all the time. I saw it with my group last Saturday, when I was inviting the women to articulate their feelings. Well, it takes a little while to get it going, because, my gosh, I'm not asking you how you're doing. I'm asking you how you're feeling, and put words to it.
Yep. and I think that you nailed it when you said, like, children, they pick up the energies. We are sentient beings. We come in with the capacity to feel everybody's energy, and then slowly we learn how to shut that off. And so I think it's so powerful that you speak to that articulation of our feelings, because that is what you talk about. I mean, suicide is one thing, but then somebody with a loaded gun, or, an AR-15 or whatever in a movie theater or whatever, that's suppressed emotion, that has nowhere else to go. Same with disease in our body. It has nowhere else to go. So it's coming back to making this part of, the priority of our being, because this is who we are, essentially. This is who we came in as.
Trish,
Yes.
This is because you talked about the emotion is anger.
Yeah.
And so when I did my research and I wrote my book back in 2015, and I was asking God, source, the universe, why on earth do we still have war on this planet? Why is there, this book was published in 2014, but the research began in 2013. And when I say research, I don't mean sitting down on Google. I mean having experiences so that I can find out, as a mystic myself, so I can find out exactly what it is while I'm communicating with source and God, to find out why do we still have war? Why are we still fighting with guns and violence? And why do we harm each other? And so that was basically it. So then, I was already deep in the emotional core work, because I'd already developed the emotional healing modality, processing your emotions, feeling to healing, and all these things. And that's when I discovered that, it's uneducated people that cause war. It is angry people that cause war. That's what it is. It's people that don't know how to deal with their emotions. And because anger is an emotion, and you said the disease in the body, it's dis-ease. It is like, anger is like a hot coal. And the reason why people pick up a gun or verbally abuse someone or take their fist to someone is because the anger that's in the body has to get out. It has to move out. It has to move. Once it moves, I feel fine now. Yeah. I got it out. So getting that anger out, finding out what it is that we're angry about, that's the number one thing. And I bet you even our beloved person that died on Sunday night was angry. And when you mix anger and alcoholism and all these things together. So if people could just do the one thing, and that is to look at their anger, because underneath that anger, there's always a truth that's waiting to be claimed. Because in the anger, it's going to be like, if I'm really angry at something, and especially if I'm with the person that is making me angry or it's triggering me, I'm going to have a very hard time to communicate to you what my anger is about, because you're the trigger and you're the person that's bringing that up. I feel like 1,000 bullets are going off inside my body, and now I'm angry. But then when I take that in to my anger management room and I go, what are you really angry about, Kornelia? Yeah. What are you really angry about? And what's going to come out of me is that I feel powerless. I feel powerless to communicate to this person. I don't know if I'm going to be heard, if I'm going to be listened to. I feel threatened. I feel violated. And all of these feelings need to be voiced, because at some point they were suppressed in the physical body. And there isn't a person on this planet today that can't tell me that they're not angry about something. When I put my book out, I had so many spiritual people tell me, I have already dealt with my anger. I don't have anger. It's not me. You need to talk to my friend. Yeah. It's all those spiritual people that felt bad about getting in touch with their anger. So you can see my passion to this, because it's like, actually, the anger is the gold. When we can get in contact with our anger and use it as creativity instead of weapons. and use it as our voice and use it for that, to go underneath it. Because anytime that I see a woman angry about something, and then I work with her on that anger, and I go, let's go deeper. What's underneath there? Next thing you know, first she's angry because he didn't listen to her. First she's angry because he didn't validate her, or because he made her promises that he hasn't been keeping. And now she doesn't believe him anymore. I'm just going to throw that out there as that, right? So, it could be anything. But if we can really go underneath that and look at, wow, once that is all out and that is all said, now how do you feel? Now you're in your power, because you didn't give it away. You didn't harm someone. You didn't hurt someone. You've acknowledged and worked with this emotion, this raw emotion. That's God's emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are human beings, and God made emotion as part of our humanity. We're not robots. We're not here to just think. We're here to feel.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of freaking injustice that needs to be made right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to throw the word courage out there. People think that courage only exists when firefighters run into a building, or military personnel defend our country, or something crazy like that. What you're talking about, Kornelia, is it takes courage. It takes courage to face ourselves, to face our emotions, to face something that isn't right in the world and speak about it. And each time, my belief is, each time we step into that courage, even if it's just a little bit, we're more empowered to do more of that. Yeah. And then lastly, I want to say that everything you're talking about, I'm smiling a little bit to my head, and I just had to look it up, but Disney and Pixar had a brilliant movie come out in 2015, which is ironically the same year that you wrote your book, and that was Inside Out. Mm-hmm. And that's where the main character they actually gave visual representation to feelings inside our head, and Riley, the main character, was stuck with anger. The only anger that was left inside of her, because she moved and she was scared and frustrated, it was anger. And so I'm smiling, because everything you're saying as an adult, everything you're saying in this new earth, everything you're saying from your personal experience, it's brilliant. And Disney and Pixar and our other media influencers need to do more of the inside out type work, because when we can make that pop culture and we can relate to it in a way that it's not just me, then our whole community and our whole world starts to shift.
Yeah.
So I'm just courage. Like, we have to choose something different, and we have to have the courage to step into it.
I love that example of the inside out. And I feel like that is when we tap into our emotions, when we're present with our emotions, when we're in tune and connected to them, that is like living our life from the inside out. And that's why we're here. We're not here to, as we've been convinced, to live from the outside in. And that's why so many of us are like, there's so much conflict inside of us, and we don't know how to translate that because we haven't been given the tools to, and we're afraid of it because we think it makes us something wrong with us. So just going back to that, conversation around tuning in and understanding where our emotions are, feeling it, articulating it, getting it out, all of those things help us, like, in our day-to-day, to live from the inside out. And that just makes us stronger intuitively, that connection with ourselves and making better choices for ourselves. It's all a win-win when we do that. It might just seem daunting at first because that's not what we know. We know the machine, we know our part in the machine, but we don't know our part in ourselves. Yeah. So coming back to that.
Yeah. And if you remember, if you approach everything with just the 24-hour example, like you have 24 hours, and you can go through this day in 24 hours this day. Mm-hmm. And so approaching it from that place, it's like when things are hard, mm-hmm. Yesterday was a hard day for a lot of people, and today is a hard day for a lot of people. And at the same time, there's a lot of people that are flourishing. And so there's also that.
Yes.
There's also that. And it's all part of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to, you held up your book. Can I do this? Can I just hold up Trisha's book that's coming out here shortly?
Oh, thank you.
Love Me. It is Awakening to Healing, Self-Love, and Liberation. And her words on the back are, my soul longs to be heard, to be understood. The liberation of these words etched in my soul is like striking a match, igniting a spark, illumination of spirit, an eruption of light, divine creative expression, my truth, whole and free. Can we just encourage everybody to speak their truth and be whole and free?
Love that. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yes. So I have to close the show because I have another call exactly right now. So it's 12 noon and I have to go. So thank you everyone for listening and tuning in. And we're going to put some of the links below in our Facebook feed. So Trish, you could put a link to your when your book is upcoming.
Yeah.
I want to put the suicide link for Brian's page for the people. Thank you to everybody for being with us today.
Yeah.
And reach out if you need support. We're here for you. Anyone.
Yeah.
If you about suicide, call me. You know how to get in touch with me. Contact me on Instant Messenger. There's nobody I would turn away. So you have all the resources. There's no reason for you not to live this life. You have a human body. You're here now. Let's do this. We love you.
It starts with us.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone. Lots of love. Namaste.
Lots of love.